I'm KHAIRUL HAZMI ZAINI. I'm from Brunei Darussalam, and I'm an urban designer by profession, based in Bandar Sibagawan. And I would like to introduce everyone with the water urbanism in Brunei Darussalam, particularly in Borneo. Okay. So, as an introduction, these are the pinpoint areas where we can find water villages. Now, interestingly, there are a lot of water villages in and around Borneo, especially on the river system, the coastline area. And you notice there's a lot of high concentration on the Brunei side and on the Indonesian side. Now, historically, both areas are empires before the colonial period. And these are an example of water villages in 3 different countries. They all look similar. As the Indonesian said, serupa tapi berbeda. All this, one of them is in Brunei, the other one is in Malaysia, and one is in Indonesia, in Banjarmasin. So all shares the same commonality in terms of visual corridor. You got the water village, you got the mosque, and you got the natural background on it. Now, historically, most water village is actually rich in culture because these are the home of the empires of both Brunei and Banjarmasin. So they all have a rich history of celebrating their culture, the wealth, and the high civilization of both countries as well. And not only that, even the lesser Malay ethnic groups also lived in Kampong Ayer, or the water village indicates the rich cultureness. But in today's context, when we look at water village today, they look more like shanty towns. This is the sad reality of water villages today. And it's very prevalent in all 3 countries. Even despite that we have 3 different governments, 3 different political systems, but we all face the same problem in all water village settlements. And what's really worse is that all these settlements are close to the urban quarters, the main downtown area. So it creates a juxtaposition in terms of like how we look the traditional water village settlement in the backdrop against the new modern skylines as well. So these are all common in all 3 countries as well. You got the ones in Brunei, we got the ones in Sabah as well. But in Brunei, what we're trying to do is to modernize this idea by creating a much more structured water village. So the Brunei government has tried something that is like outside of the box, but they're trying to make it as a much more of a grid line, as a modern settlement, just like on water. But in fact, this doesn't work well. It's good on paper, it's good on design, but it is socially destructing. Then they learned from the mistake from the previous one, and they have created version 2.0. So version 2.0, there's not much difference. They only changed the design of the houses. They look more similar to the ones in with their land counterparts. But in fact, they neglect the traditional architectural typology of it. And when we look at traditional urban settlement, this is the scene that we can see in traditional urban settlement. Lively streets, Jane Jacob would say, eyes on the street, and then you got people, community building. This is a form of resilience. This is economy. This is what we can see on traditional urban settlement. It's something that modern housing on water village cannot be seen. And in response, people who live in the modern water villages, they feel like resisted, and they try to change something else. They feel like oppression is, and the way they want to express their oppression is by creating this kind of gardens, extending the roofs, and creating their own public spaces. This is a form that people wanted to change the whole idea as well. Now, when it comes to resilience, is that resilience really, it's dynamic in nature, but what I'm trying to focus on my work is resilience in terms of sociality, how humanistics in design, and how people would take pride in their environment. An overview of the water village in Brunei. This is what we see. Gone are the days of the glorious water villages in Brunei. This is the main downtown. This is actually the adjacent part of it. You can see the modern houses here, and we can see all those rusty roof there. I mean, yeah, there's the sign of economic deprivation going on because of the lack of, what you call this, pride in the water village itself. Why is that so? Because traditionally, this is what we see Brunei in the 1970s. It's quite packed, it's quite condensed. But due to fires and government state intervention, such as law that prohibits the resettlement back of the areas that has been burned down. So it slowly becomes a much more like disintegrating part of it. Now, the Brunei government has open ideas. There are open ideas for new ideas in planning, and they invited international architects and planners, such as Kenzo Tenge here. But the problem with Kenzo Tenge was that when he introduced the concept, it was like more into a grid pattern. So it was technically rejected by the government at that time. The government at that time really rejected because he introduced like a complete overhaul of the whole system. And then we had other planners as well, which is we call it in Mr. Huzar Brahma and team. They're focusing more on modern housing, and especially in the introduction of infrastructure such as sewerage. But the most comprehensive of all planning is the one made by architect Ibrahim, a local Bruneian architect, where the focus is much more moderate. So he envisioned that the idea of the old water village, we can retain some of the houses, repair some of the old houses, but in a much more resilient way, but to allow people to come and build the houses in according to natural growth of the, natural growth of the house itself. And then the reason one is the Brunei Bandar Sumbergawan master plan is from a firm from Hong Kong. And what they propose is a much more tourist-oriented one. And literally, if you can see here, it's mostly the design is mostly emphasizing on mangrove resort, arts village, floating markets, all those things that are reflected for tourism as a tourism product. And something that is quite non-achievable by local standard because of the disproportionately wealth that can be created through tourism. We understand that as well. This is based on my previous thesis. What I believe is that other than all these plans itself, there is a need to indicate like strata titleship on water. Land strata, but on water. But you have one already like on the air, like apartments have strata title, but why not we have on the ground? This is the problem with the modern water villages, not only in Brunei, but also as well around Borneo, is that once you build your house on water, there is no stratification. The land that you anchored your house has no rights to it. So that is the reason why people are reluctant to take pride in their house, to invest in upgrading their house to a much more better one. So when we look at traditional elements, especially in Brunei, we have natural embankments called bakuts, which is public spaces. Unlike the previous government plan is to create an artificial public spaces, but for traditional public spaces, these are the island, the local islands here, the local pathway here. It becomes a symbol of public spaces, although it's quite narrow, but it's teeming with life. People would go there. People would greet everyone, one another. People take pride and become a security on the street itself. And so this is the thing that move forward. Now, the problem with the current water village is this kind of law. A law that was passed by the government in order to combat the destruction from fire and relocate people and to modernize the whole water village, which I believe, and some of the planners in Brunei would believe, that we need to change the law and try to relax the law to allow people to come back as well. And because they also introduced, the new modern houses was introduced with strata title. This is actually strata titles that was given to the new modern houses. If that is possible, why not you put it into the traditional urban settlement? Give them the pride that they own the houses. They can invest back in the houses. This is what my understanding of resiliency. Now, in conclusion to what I'm trying to convey here is that a natural growth of the water village could be a suitable framework for urban resilience. Now, number one is the ability for the local to develop its social economic infrastructure, enhancing livelihood through modern infrastructure, meaning to say we also allow modern infrastructure like sewerage, Wi-Fi, electricity, and piping for water to be implemented in traditional urban settlements, and also revisiting the cultural symbiotic relationship with the surrounding areas to assert commitment for environmental sustainability. What I mean is that we have our traditional areas called the bakut, the natural embankment, that was existed in every settlement in Brunei, to be incorporated because of the bakut itself. People take account, they take care of the environment. People take care of the environment, they create spaces, they create activities for them. So this is what we really meant for resilience, urbanism, and water village. Thank you very much.
Now it's time for our respondents. Please, Professor Kelly Shannon, you are the first reviewers.
So thank you for the presentation. For me, I've been reading from your abstract to the different versions of the paper. I wish there was a little bit more change from one paper to the other. It seems a lot of the suggestions weren't taken up, probably had to do with time, but I hope you can do that afterwards, because I think, for me, the foundation of the paper is really interesting, and it could use a little bit of further critical view. But for me, I would like to focus on 2 or 3 points. So the first one is, and it's something that was mentioned during the peer review process. I think we have to pay attention to the word resilience and adaptation. I think, well, from what I read and talking with people, understand that we're kind of beyond resilience, and we need to talk about adaptation. So I think it's, to me, trying to more systematically turn, when you talk about resilience, to turn it to adaptation. I think it will help a lot. And I think that's why the floating, or the water villages, whether they're floating on stilts, the adaptive capacity they have is really important. So I would encourage you to maybe reflect on the meaning of the words. I don't think they're interchangeable, and I think you use them a little bit interchangeably. The second thing is, for me, again, it's a little bit my obsession of believing in architects and believing in design and believing in urban design, and where I think we're too easily giving up our importance. So I wanted to kind of question you a little bit. And on page 7, you say, planners and urban designers play an important role in creating action plans. The profession is a middle person in communicating the local aspirations and guiding government policies. And are we just the middleman? I mean, to me, I hope, but this is again a personal opinion, that we have more agency in changing the world. So I think you're it looks like you maybe believe that as well, but your writing, you still are kind of giving up the role of design to being this kind of facilitator. So I question that. And then I just go to the third thing to let you then respond. For me, the third thing I think would be really interesting in understanding the kind of importance of this traditional water cities is actually to develop a lexicon or to develop a vocabulary that is very precise about water. So you even talk about eyes on the street. It's eyes on the water. It's eyes on the river. And I think we don't need to talk about kind of sidewalks and, no, so there's a whole other vocabulary of piers and things that have to do with water. I think we're so kind of indoctrinated that development equals roads, equals infrastructure, equals land. And I think if we step backwards and try to understand also in your own language, what is the vocabulary of water? Because I think it's fundamentally different than that of land. And I think it can help reinforce your kind of love of these water landscapes. So I think, for me, those are 3 big things. And a whole other issue, of course, is the notion of sewage, and could we use plants to, and phytoremediation to come in? So I think there's a lot of really interesting things. And I find the research really interesting, but I think it could all go one step. Yeah, I would say a little more radical. Again, not radical to be radical, but to shake things up, because otherwise it's kind of business as usual.
Can I respond to this? All right. I'll respond to that. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. What's your name? I'm so sorry, KHAIRUL. I think it's not only very interesting piece of your work, but also very important in terms of how we have to care about maintaining the spatial characteristics of riverine settlement in Borneo, which in your case is Kampong Ayer. And I agree strongly with the opinion of Professor Kelly when she emphasized about the resilience and adaptations in which you need to really distinguish between these two terminologies. But I also would like to, perhaps maybe you can comment on this after Chaewon give you another comments. I've got this impression that your paper, even though it's very important, you see the resilience from the lens of a professional, but not yet perhaps from the lens of the people who have lived in this area. I mean, have you ever considered about the adaptations and the challenges of the people after the fire breaks and they have to live in this, what I say as the iron grid pattern of this Kampong Ayer, because we know that previously they live in a very different urban form, which is organic, incremental, really surrender to the nature. But after the government provided this assistance, after the fire breaks, they must live in a very strange and strongly different kind of form. So socially and economically, I assume there must be some challenges that the community must deal with in their everyday life. And I hope that maybe you can explain it later, or maybe something that you perhaps in the future need to consider, because I know maybe you are an architect and a professional, and I think it is very important if you also try to understand the perspectives about the resilience and about living in that, very different environment. That's all from me. Thank you.
To add up, I think at least, your water-based villages still there, and in Vietnam, although in Southeast Asia, we share a lot of communities living like that, water-based, either along the waters or on the water, floating. But in Vietnam, those communities are not given any rights. They don't have the use of their land in quotation, because it's the water, not land or soil. And also they are under the very, big ambitious of removals sooner or later. So at least, your object of research is still there, and you have lots of opportunities, to do some more, work, and hopefully, in the future, you can protect the community. And I am really interested in socially resilient. I'm not sure how you define that, but, it's a new term that triggered me, to do maybe research myself. So thank you.
Maybe I'll just comment on one from Dr. Kelly's. I think I wanted to elucidate or highlight the idea of why is it the planners become the middlemen. I mean, yeah, you might be correct on that statement, but I think just because in my profession, what we do here, I'm not sure about in other places in Southeast Asia, we kind of act a role as a mediator to convince, because we are the middleman, you got the community and you got the government, everyone has their own point. But we try to synthesize the point. What the government is trying to do, sometimes is rejected by the local community. And we have to negotiate on that, how do we translate what the government's vision to that of the community. So this is what we're trying to be the middleman in that matter. And of course, sometimes it sucks out the opportunity for us to implement our vision as well is just because that we are, because this is the political structure. I mean, planning is a political structure, and we are hired by the government to help them out on how we can, what do you call this, like bringing the message to the local community. So there is we're kind of like trapped in the middle as well, but at the same time, we have the rights to influence the government, and because the government also thinks that, is there any better way to do so? Just like the ones previously shown, Kenzo Tengi is having an idea. The fact that Kenzo Tengi said that let's do overhaul of the water village, but then the government like rejected. But 30 years down the line, they come back to Kenzo Tengi and like, yeah, why not we do what Kenzo Tengi proposed us 30 years ago? So it's the same thing. And as I mentioned, I think we do have a problem in terms of like how we really wanted to advocate in it. So the way of how we advocate is to educate from both sides. And I'll bet it's a small matter, but we try to influence the thought of thinking from both sides as well. So I think that is my understanding of like how we become the middleman from the statement. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Bali is facing increasing environmental threats due to rapid urbanization and high energy demand, especially in hospitality sector. The top is Canggu shortcut in 2016 or 18, and now it's already like that. Too bad, but it's happened. Traditional Bali architecture is rooted in the Trihita Karana philosophy, which is promoting harmony with nature, with human, and with spiritual. On the other hand, passive coolings offer a sustainable solution to reduce energy consumption and urban heat island effect. Yeah. The research is how can Balinese architecture principles and passive cooling strategies to be integrated into modern building design. And the objective is to develop a sustainable, energy efficient and culturally rooted green building design model for tropical climate, especially for Balinese architecture and buildings in Bali. The vernacular architecture in Balinese architecture is more of local adaptation to environment. They have used local materials like stones, timber, and fabrics, and also have high roof pitch, and have a natural ventilation in the Balinese traditional building. In the passive cooling, the strategy is like cross ventilation, shading, overhangs, and light reflected material and vegetation is all the effort to minimizing the use of mechanical system inside the building itself. We are trying to integrate the approach of both positive ways to emphasizing contextual, adaptive, and climate-sensitive design rooted in the local culture inside the building, especially in hospitality building in Bali. Yeah, the research gap is, I find that previous studies on architectural, Balinese architecture is focused mostly on aesthetic and symbolic aspect. And there were limited integrative research linking Balinese vernacular architecture and the passive cooling. So hopefully this study fills the gap by providing empirical analytic in the hospitality context. I do a field observation on building orientation, material use, ventilation, vegetation in there, interviews with the owner, the architect, hotel manager, and have a thermal humidity measurement, also a simulation between the building is already built and it's stripped away if it become a basic building. This building is actually in Bali, and now it's become, hopefully it's not, but now it's more becoming the face of Bali. So everybody thinks Bali is like this now, unfortunately. We are hoping to turn it back into the way Bali is. So when people come to Bali, they know they are in Bali, not in Rome or Colosseum like that. The case study is in Sanur area. It's the origin of tourism in Bali. It's facing the ocean and it adapts, the main architect from Singapore, but he adapts the Balinese aspect and also the passive cooling strategy in here. The key finding here is with the cross section, and then the shade, and then ventilation, and then the water bodies, and then the landscape. It able to lower the indoor temperature between around 2 to 3 degrees Celsius than in conventional buildings. Also, we do like a simulation, with the room, with the passive cooling design, and also we strip away everything, and then make it as a basic design. So the difference and if we put load on it, the difference is about 20%, and without load is about actually 67%. Also, the good thing is the building is orientated toward the south. So it's good for the orientation as well, and also the vegetation all helps and contributes to a better thermal performance. The things that they are trying to make is not talking about only the building, but they also input the cultural identity. They preserve it, so it's enhancing the aesthetic, but also for the guest experience as well. So like I said before, when you come to Bali, you are in Bali. You feel you are in Bali. So the analysis is for the Trita Karana philosophy that the harmony with the nature is the use of green spaces, the landscape, the space, and the natural material inside this property, like natural stones, and then timber, and etc., etc. Yeah. For the three Takarana philosophy on the harmony with the human is on their public spaces, they don't use air conditioning, so but still maintaining the thermal comfort with a minimal energy, just only use. But it's not, but it makes the guests calm, and then they can sit there, have breakfast, have everything, but still in comfort. And then for the Parayangan with spiritual, harmony with spiritual is the sacred orientation, north or south. That's good, they do it in here. And also they use the carving also, and then the local, because it's a fisherman village in there also, they use that symbolism into this design. So with all of this combined, so hopefully the contextual architecture is the key to social, cultural, and ecological resilience that currently happening in Bali, actually. So the conclusion is the integration of vernacular architecture and passive cooling is effective for sustainable tropical buildings. And it reduces energy dependency, preserve cultural heritage, and enhance user comfort. The implication is hopefully to become design guidelines for future projects, also policy recommendation for local material use, and scalable to new and retrofit buildings. And the recommendation for future research is to broaden the scope, include villas, resort, homestay across Bali or even other tropical region, conduct longitudinal studies to assess seasonal and long-term performance, analyze using perception and economic feasibility, develop integrated assessment tool for technical and cultural aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we have the first reviewer. Please welcome Mr. Kang.
Can I sit? Yes, sure. Okay. Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. Because I also a practitioner, so and I do a lot of research about the passive cooling. So I really feel it is interesting one. And I have some questions for you, just support. But and I hope you can, based on my question, you can develop your research and how to enhance the improvement for your design in the future. The first is I know Bali is very famous for tourists, right? But why, I don't know why you just select the hotel hospitality only, not the housing. So I think housing is because the percentage of the housing inhabitant is large and should learn from the passive design from the residential architecture. And the second point is, I think you should show more detailed passive cooling strategy. I mean, you should categorize and put them in the systematized table and chart something to, because I see in your paper, your research, you try to make a relationship between the passive cooling strategy and you call the philosophy of Trihita Karana, right? So I think you should do something to make clear, because it's difficult to understand, to connect the technique of passive design and the philosophy of the Trihita, because I think all of the culture of, like, for example, in Vietnam or other country, or for example in Japan, all the religions always respect nature, and they say we should connect to the gods and the air or the water or something. So I hope you make clear, and it make people don't feel it's reluctant conclusion from your opinions only. And another point for a little bit technical is I consider about the you compare the conventional types and the vernacular types, right? And in the figure 3 in the page number 6, there is a 10% decrease between the conventional hotel and the hotel vernacular, because I don't know why the humidity percentage of the vernacular is lower than the conventional, because if a building uses the air conditioning, the humidity will be decreased quite a lot, right? Because the temperature decreased and the humidity also decreased too. But why in this simulation the result is a reverse? Okay, just wait.
Thank you. So the next one.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't read the papers, but I do have some questions. One question is more about, maybe I'll do it quick. It's just that synthesis between modern and traditional. It is really unclear to me what the traditional here is. Like, it doesn't seem like the hotel is using traditional materials as an integral part, right? Maybe it's used as ornamentation, but not necessarily. And you mentioned it was a Singaporean architect, so what would traditional craftsmen and carpenters say when they look to this building? What is the modern that this is trying to integrate with the traditional principles? So I think there's a little bit of a conceptual confusion that I have here. And I would also like to problematize that maybe the environmental crisis in Bali is not necessarily only about building energy use, but also all the activities that happen, the big pool in front of each of those units. Wouldn't that also need to change if we were to adapt more traditional strategies of environmental resource, resilient resources? So that's my comments, last question.
Well, thanks a lot for the paper. I think also for me, this paper improved with comments, so I appreciate that those were taken up. And I think also the inclusion of some key images really helps in making your argument. So I think that was a good kind of, or you felt useful as a reviewer. So what I appreciate very much is this kind of trying to bring in probably an intuition, I suppose you had, but backing it up with quantitative and measurement. So I think that is really commendable, the doing of that. I tend to agree a little bit with Kang in the notion that, well, if we know that Bali is, of course, a kind of key touristic area, but still I think many of the aspirations globally is going away from tradition. So beyond the resort and tourist sector, but just to housing in general. So if you talk about how vernacular architecture and passive cooling remains feasible and economically more appropriate, and certainly dealing with crises for also housing. No, I agree with Kang in that sense, that kind of the focus on the resort, but I think also reconvincing the locals to believe in their own tradition and heritage. Of course, not romanticizing it, but I think particularly in terms of passive cooling is really key. For me, I wanted to suggest to you two things. So one is, I wonder if somehow the opening image you showed of this new image of kind of generic global architecture that you say is not Bali, if also you can conceptually, if you're working on a doctorate, begin to propose traditional knowledge as resistance, as a way to resist globalization. So maybe not as resilience, but really more active as resistance against the forces, and proving that it has kind of socio-cultural relevance, but also economically. Simply when you count your Bali money, it's cheaper to do it using natural cooling. And I had a few references. I think your reference list starts to be interesting, but there's a very interesting man who, I'm not sure where he's based now. I think he's based in Hong Kong or Singapore. Jiat Hui Chang. I'm probably not saying that name completely right, but he's a really, I've written it down, I can give it to you, but a really interesting man who's spent basically the last 10 years looking into passive cooling and trying to understand it in the Southeast Asian conditions. So I think, and what's interesting is he's also starting to talk about outdoor cooling, knowing that we have massive global warming. So not just interiors, but also the exterior, and with really interesting ways. I think also looking at some of the early work of William Lin, where he writes about New Asian urbanism, and then an old book actually by a woman named Roxana Watterson, who wrote a book called The Living House, an Anthropology of Architecture in Southeast Asia. I mean, I see you have Paul Oliver in your list, but I think this Roxana Watterson is really interesting because she focuses particularly on the Southeast Asian house and the technologies of the house and their ephemeral nature and their passive cooling, without using maybe the words passive cooling, but in fact, that's what she shows. So for me, yeah, I didn't really have questions, but I just, well, I think it's a really fascinating start, and it would be nice to see your next steps and to expand to beyond the kind of artificial world of tourism now, which I think remains its own bubble somehow. But thank you for a very, very nice paper.
Do you have any feedback on that?
Maybe a few. For the housing, yeah, there is an interesting phenomenon happens in Bali. So, if for Balinese, everybody has to go back to their house, their old house. So, like I say, because my wife is Balinese, but if I have I have three sons, so my last son have to stay with me until I die, and live in my house. And it's usually in their old house, on the Balinese traditional houses. So it's part of Balinese houses is actually still traditional, and the tradition keeps going on and on until Bali is gone. Actually. So that's a good thing. So I hope my sons come back to me when I'm old. So why hotel is because it's super boom. Everybody's building hotel in Bali. And then the massive energy, the energy is very massive happening in hotel in Bali is like over the top. And then there is a phenomenon that is happening occurs before. Bali doesn't have its own power source, so the electricity power source is actually from Java, and the government tried to open its own power source in Bali, but Balinese people rejected. And a few weeks ago, it happened. There is a blackout in Bali. So everybody's angry, but it's happened. So and everybody tried to book a villa and a hotel room. Everybody, include myself. Why? Because there is electricity in the villa and hotel. They can shower, they can everything. That's happened. I mean, but again, because and the other excuses is because it's closed. Actually, I'm the local architect in this project, so yeah. So that's another reason as well. For the humidity, I need to continue on try to get, I understand, because air conditioning humidity is usually low, and why with it is in the opposite way. So actually the basic design is still having air conditioning as well. So both of the basic design and then the design that using the vernacular, they are both the same, have air conditioning. But the basic design, they strip every passive cooling design out of the picture. So I don't know whether it maybe because of that become even denser. So the glass is full glass and then without any low E and etc. etc. So maybe, but thank you to bring that up. I'm trying. I will find out about it more. Yeah. And then for the books, maybe after this I will ask you. It will help me more on that one. The architect is from Singapore. So the owner actually from Indonesia, but he lives in Malaysia, and then his friend is the architect in Singapore. So he tried to contact me because I'm not Balinese, but I've been living there for maybe 27 years now. So he tried to get the Balinese aspect and impact into the design, yeah. And for the pool as well, because. Yes, we tried to reach the traditional into the design, but on the other hand, it's a commercial building still. It's still commercial buildings, and why there is a pool in front is the ocean. Why people don't go to the ocean to swim? But the guests and the operators said no. People still want to have the pool and the ocean, the option. So they want to swim in the ocean, but you have to have a pool. For you to sell on the private villa, you have to have a pool. So it's another economic happening like that. What else? Yeah, is enough? Is that everything?
Yeah, congratulations! Your first time you make it. Very good one.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rini Suryantini, and here next to me is Jasmine Arindita, my student from undergraduate program at Universitas Indonesia. Today, we are going to present our exploration of the threshold within the longhouse of the Daya Iban community in West Kalimantan. We investigate the spatiality of a threshold in Rumah Panjai or the longhouse of Daya Iban and how such architectural elements and space play roles in such a unique dwelling, particularly in how they connect, they mediate, and sustain communal living. Jasmine here is a part of UI students' excursion team, Ekskursi Iban, that I supervise, that visited the longhouse last year. This study starts with to explore the threshold as an architectural element, which at the same time act as a boundary and portal. It draws from Butger's concept of threshold as spaces that connect and separate, offering an ambiguous and between quality. However, rather than viewing it as a static object, this study argues that the threshold is a complex and elusive idea. It can perform a dynamic entity and allows multiplicity to occur, allowing negotiation, a dialectic between the conditions. Using qualitative studies, the study involved fieldwork at July 2024 in Sungai Utik and Sungai Plaik. Observation, interviews, mapping, and visual documentation were used to understand the threshold in their natural context. The data is analyzed based on the spatial qualities and spatial occupation.
The longhouse is a linear structure composed of biliks as the domestic units, which are interwoven with shared spaces. Here, the tanjuk, kaki lima, ruai becomes the threshold of the house. And based on the analysis, there are 3 roles of the threshold that can be identified. Okay, so the first role is the outside and inside transition. It can be seen from how the space can be experienced as a gradient of openness and enclosure. The openings and enclosures become the connectors and separators of different inside and outside conditions. Next, the surface that constructs the threshold shows an interplay of light and shadow as one moves from the open outside to the more enclosed space inside. The threshold facilitates the shifts in light, temperature, and also visibility. Okay, next, the atmospheric quality of the threshold modulates between intimacy and togetherness, generated by the subtle changes in level and also of the material composition. The more inside it is, the denser the vertical and horizontal surfaces and the less porous it becomes. The second role is shared circulation. It enables horizontal flows between units, from one end to another, and from the outside to the inside. The tanjuk, kaki lima, and also ruai create paths for movement, serving as a staging for the communal activities. The threshold becomes the space for gathering, exchanging, working, and resting all together or alone. It allows a fluid way to pause, stop, and also circulate, which can be reconfigured anytime. The space also mediates privacy and maintains connectivity without rigid rules. Each of the spaces is characterized by different movements, of different movement trajectories, which are crucial for the communal activities. The trajectories reveal multiple stopping points and flow before entering the private chamber itself. Here, the threshold becomes the space of the everyday activities and socio-cultural events, connecting the whole longhouse as one. Events like the babi lemai, as shown in the picture here, extends across several biliks in the ruai, showing how threshold supports collective rituals through spatial flexibility and an interrelated network. The activities and events are not only contained in one threshold space inside, but can also be extended to other thresholds itself. And the presence of various gathering points for domestic or ritual activities shows how they foster the sense of unity as a community. Such overlapping use of space through time shows how the threshold becomes multi-layered, be it as everyday use or eventual activities like Sunday service or the babi lemai rituals. Thresholds are organized simultaneously, showing flexibility as the spatial logic of the longhouse. During larger rituals, thresholds like the tanjuk and ruai are fluidly organized. Here, no bilik is isolated. The thresholds are transformed into sacred spaces where humans, animals, and spiritual entities intertwine, hoping for the blessing and protection from the ancestors and from the gods. The thresholds and their entanglement do not occur only horizontally, but also vertically. The positioning of humans in the ruai, the animal below in the kolong, and the spirits above in the sadao shows how the spaces mediate human and also non-human relations, reflecting the symbolic order of the space.
This study demonstrates how thresholds become the key to dynamic communal living. They accommodate the subtle transition from nature outside to the cultured inside, from the communal to private chambers. They organize movement and activities within the available spaces. It also shows the threshold as a space of events, as the socio-spatial infrastructure that is spatially porous and temporally layered. vertically and horizontally. They are negotiated to sustain communal living through the blurring of boundaries, facilitating interactions and cultural rights, and the intertwining of humans and the non-humans. So it can be concluded that the threshold in the Rumah Panjai is more than an architectural object. Threshold structure the interaction through progressive spatial layering, positioning domestic spaces within their nexus. It reflects how threshold can promote the sustenance of communal living and at the same time anchoring the cultural tradition. Thank you for your attention.
Dr. R.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I really enjoyed reading the different versions of this paper. And I think the presentation also brings in light so many details that were maybe not so, perhaps because of the limitation of the word count, but were not really represented in the paper. So I'm learning a lot, and I'm really excited to see those images and those diagrams a little better. I guess I have two questions and also some ideas. One is, I'm still curious about the details of how these social interactions and events unfold here. Are there gendered practices? Is there maybe some aged practices there? Is there a hierarchy within this communal living that kind of shows in these places? But also, are outsiders invited to be in these places? So this is all like a lot of curiosity just triggered by your project. So I'm just still curious, are there economic activities happening that are communal maybe in these places? I mean, I also wish the diagrams were a little larger, because the drawings, I can see they are amazing and have also a lot of details, but in many versions it was hard to see, and I would love to really see them in larger versions. The other thing was, I mean, it really makes us think about what implications this has in the way we build cities and build places for public life, for communal life maybe. So if you have any insights about the lessons that could be maybe applied in different contexts, that would be amazing. And I was also thinking maybe because of the rich nature of drawings that you have presented, maybe there are opportunities to do temporal mappings. I'm sure you might have considered those as well, but I was really thinking back on maybe Annette Kim's work on the temporal mapping of how activities in a sidewalk were unfolding. Maybe that could be something that shows the different layers, but also in the different dimensions of people engaging in the spaces, because from your writing, yeah, those could be maybe a little bit more expanded in maybe a different version in the future. Thank you.
Now, Dr. Khang, please.
Okay, I feel very interested in your presentation because you mentioned about threshold now it's like a dynamic space, like multi-layer space, right? With many activities going on there. When I researched about the passive design in Vietnam, and I think the veranda in Vietnam is look like the space used in threshold, like an intermediate space that connect the inside and outside environment. And I feel interested. So I have some questions. First is, you can use any concept or the context of the difference between the threshold types, the types of threshold. I mean, I need to know the concept or the context based on what, and even a little bit detail, but the gap between the floors, there's any difference and any concept or aspect or hierarchy to categorize them, because I know maybe they have some specific activities or concept. And one of a question is how important an influence of such kind of threshold in daily life in your country, because what if this kind of threshold disappear in the contemporary architecture nowadays? Is it okay or not?
I think if before you answer that question, or maybe give back, I also have, I read your paper actually, and because of some reason, suddenly I was withdrawn by the review, but still I have some review about your paper. The role that identified in your paper in 3 roles, and compared to what we study from the transitional space in 3 countries, Chinese, Japanese and Vietnamese transitional space, we have more than that. The roles of that space is much more, 11, 12 something. So if you, maybe because you haven't identified yet, maybe it's not just for communal gathering, it's for productive activities, and maybe because of the length and the width of that space, it can help cooling, ventilation and so on. So the roles is more. So if you answer his question, if you can identify different morphology of that space by maybe analyze more building or more typology, you can be able to identify more of that. I answer for your question.
First of all, thank you so much for the feedbacks and questions. I would like to answer the first question. Regarding the, are there any categorizations and how is the social condition there? One of the most prominent thing that I myself realize is that they have a very prominent respect towards the elderlies. And this is represented, this manifests as the way they place families in the bilik. Or the housing units. So the family that quote unquote deserves to be placed in the center part of the bilik is the one who is the leader of the house. And that is a permanent rule, and there is no way that that could be changed. So first of all, it's that. And the other thing is probably, I think that's it. That's the thing that I myself can see very clearly. They have a very prominent respect towards the elderly. I think that's it. There is no segregation that is based on gender in the house. So everyone just lives together inside it. I think that's it.
Thank you. Let me add to that. Actually, the Daya Iban is known for that they are equal in the society unless for the elderly, and therefore Jasmine had said that they positions the elderly in the middle, and then they put that I think there is also additional rules, but it is not always apply. It doesn't always apply in other Daya Iban. So there is the belief that the upstream is better than the downstream and so on. So this kind of arrangement also exists. And then regarding, thank you for the feedbacks. We have difficulties regarding the limitation of words in to what extent we can discuss it more. And this is also to address that there are more roles of threshold, but since we are focusing on the threshold as the space of events for this particular community, therefore we try to see how they can support the communality between them. So of course it plays important roles as sun shading devices. I mean, like the buffering condition for the inside mediates the outside, and then also there is a degree of lighting and so on, which we can learn of course from them, and how they can create this transitional condition so that the inside would be more accommodative for the living together, I think. So, thank you for the feedback. So maybe we can add to it more when we have the chance to elaborate it in the paper and also with the diagrams, of course. Thanks.
So my last question, we also have longhouse, but not for the King ethnic communities. We have 55 ethnic communities, and longhouse belong to the mountainous communities, Banas and Ades. But this is the house for the family, big family, 3-4 generation, so that we can share space with elders and younger, not communal house.
Not communal house. So
This is the residential.
This is actually like a sub-ethnic group, so that they are living together. Not necessarily they have to be descendant from one family. So it just and one thing that we realize that such arrangement of thresholds become important in nowadays, because we are now currently we tend to develop the co-living, co-dwelling as an architectural types of dwelling, and then it does really show the importance of threshold to be positioned in that kind of architectural types. So I think, that's additional points.
You should put that idea into your conclusion and discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the occasion. So we will conduct we have conducted the research in the creation of local wisdom in the development of pig farming in the midst of a Muslim community through a transdisciplinary approach. So I'm Adrianus Yuka. I'm with my partner, Brunei, and we are from Department of Communication, so maybe our research quite different from others because they use architectural approach maybe, but we use a social approach, or that is communication science. Next. Especially in business communication and sustainability communication, studying about the relationship between organization, or in this case is an enterprise, and society or community. In the relationship, rules of game, either written or unwritten, is required to ensure a sustainable business. Rules of game comprise mutual understanding between two sides. To reach a mutual understanding, transdisciplinary approach is highly recommended for organization, usually has interdisciplinary. For in this case, in big farm, they have law expert, and then animal husbandry, and then animal nutrition, etc. But they will encounter local knowledge, values, and habits, custom, etc. that are very different from scientific knowledge. And the importance of spatial planning in this case is the 4 point: social issues, environmental impacts, religious concerns, cultural sensitivity. Especially for religious concerns, we will take a look on the pig farm in the midst of Muslim community. And the research question is, how has Lavanda Pig Farm undertaken its business development process? And the aim is to explain the development of the Lavanda Pig Farm from the perspective of sustainability using transdisciplinary. And the main concept of transdisciplinary approach is how scientific knowledge can compromise with non-scientific knowledge, that is community-based knowledge. We have local insights and tradition, because local knowledge is not only like arts or maybe agriculture, but also habit. And local wisdom is an integral part of culture, originated from lived experience of local communities, comprises knowledge, worldviews, and life strategies. We will use the 5 stages. We will take a look later. And the method is study case with qualitative analysis, definition, data collection, interviews, and data analysis. We interview 3 persons and the residents around Lavanda Pig Farm. Next. Next. This is the map of Lavanda Pig Farm. The red is Lavanda Pig Farm, and this is the Pojok village, and the yellow is settlement, and in violet is field, and in light orange is rice field. So lavender is very close to, this is RT or neighborhood unit at the edge, and this is Nguri, this is very close. But there is no problem instead of this very closeness, because some points we will take a look on the stages. I will take a look first on general overview of Pojok village. The population is 1,614 people, population density 199, and they have communal activities like bersih desa or annual village cleansing, monthly kerja bakti, and the most of them are Muslim, 99.6%, and the most of them are farmers. So agriculture is very important for the life in the Pojok village. Next. And then description of lavender pig farm. So I take this picture from Google Maps, and this is the location. And in this blue, very light line blue, it is the water detention or reservoir to process the wastewater. Lavender pig farm is a large-scale pig farm with the production capacity reaches 40,000 pigs per month, and in the development planning process involve team of experts like environment, law, and animal, and also regular disinfectant spraying is also carried out. Next. And it is the management from the owner and the nutrition department to formulate feed, monitoring nutritional balance, production department, technology, and human resources. Next. And this measurement is from government to measure how pig farm, the parameter from settlement, the first category is small scale of pig farm, and so lavender pig farm is more than 200 pigs or more. In this case, the measurement of distance at least 1 kilometer, and then the first special planning is stage of location selection, and in the first time lavender pig farm established in 1985, there is no consideration on culture and social, and so they only consider about environment. And stage of zoning, the problem arising because they waste the pollution of air and water, and so the conflict rise with lavender with the community. And then in the stage of supporting infrastructure procurement, lavender pig farm use transdisciplinary. They have FGDs with the stakeholders, and so they get the exact solution for the problem. And so, despite of not ideal zoning and not ideal culture, they still can continue their business because of they use this kind of scheme to process their waste like liquid, solid, and then into the agriculture, and the people around it use the water from the pig farm to water their plants. And then next. And then from the solution, then they gain community acceptance, and by giving social compensation, like inviting 100 people to attend a discussion in the establishment, and then also educating, providing public infrastructure, and so lavender pig farm is getting social cohesion with community. Next. In general, by applying local wisdom, lavender was able to grow from raising hundreds of pigs to approximately 40,000 per month today. And lavender success cannot be spared from its transdisciplinary practices. And now lavender is considered as an integral part of the Pojok village community. And lesson learned here is the importance of environmental, social, and cultural considerations in spatial planning. And we can take the conclusion. The first lavender pig farm in developing its pig farming business carried out spatial planning, including site selection, zoning, provision of sporting infrastructure, and gaining community acceptance and providing social compensation. And then second, a transdisciplinary approach to integrating local wisdom began during the infrastructure development phase when social issues arose due to non-ideal zoning. And then the third, appropriate resolutions form of compensation and contributions to development have enabled lavender pig farm to gain community acceptance and support, allowing its business to grow and sustain in Pojok village. Thank you, that's all our presentation.
So the first reviewer, Katharina.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Adrianus. Yeah, again, it's a very interesting topic of paper that you presented. And I learned that there are many factors that, of course, contributed to the success of the lavender pig farming, environmentally and I think socially, because it happened to be, the community happened to be the Abangan group, which is the Javanese community who's embraced Islam as their ideology, but they also open to other values. Yeah, so it's also, I think, becomes one of the benefits for the lavender pig farming to be able to sustain among this community. And then also because the strategies that used by the this farming industry in terms of how they consider the existence of the local community. So they attempt, as you said, to think about how the waste coming from the pig or the manure could be benefited for their agricultural lands. Yeah, but my curiosity is about, because in the paper you mentioned, you also use the sustainability communication as your framework. So I'm very curious how you integrate between this framework with the spatial planning. I think that you attempt to embrace something new like spatial planning, but I think in the future, if you would like to improve your paper, you need, and your team need to figure out how to integrate these two different concepts, yeah, which are the sustainability community communication and the spatial planning. And my second question is still about the spatial planning. Did you have, do you ever know what kind of processes that this industry or the farming owner do to engage the community in the planning? I mean, do they really engage the local community in the planning? I think if there is the project where the community engaged in the spatial planning, perhaps that is the way where you can talk more about the sustainability communication. And my third curiosity is because we know that the community in Pojok village farmed this agriculture, and then they used the pig manure to fertilize their lands. Are these products only consumed by the locals, or do they also, sell the products to other people through public market? Yeah, it's just a curiosity, I think.
The port?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the agricultural products, because for some people, perhaps not abangan, but like priai who perhaps have a stronger belief in Islam, so they prohibit themselves from, eating any products that use, pig manure as fertilizers. It could risk some kind of a conflicts, perhaps. So this is something that I would like to know, and perhaps other audience, whether this community also sell the agricultural products to other people beyond themselves. Yeah, I think that's all for me. Thank you so much.
I will also add a little bit on that. One thing that I am still a little unsure about the paper is whether this acceptance from the pig farm side in the planning of local knowledge, whether if it is truly transdisciplinary and accepting local knowledge to improve their pig farming practices that are more adjusted to the local traditions, whether that was happening or whether this was just a transactional thing where, okay, these are the things that the local community is not happy about, so we will fix it, kind of. I think there is a distinction between those ways of dealing with conflict, and I think that's the core in your paper, how they dealt with this conflict between the community and the pig farm that conceptually doesn't really sit well in that context, right? So for me, the question still remains whether this was more of like a suppression of or resolution of any conflict sources from the pig farm and then they were happy, or whether there was actually something that they learned from the locals in terms of boosting their productivity because there was something about the soil or the water or the environment that they needed to learn in order to thrive as a pig farm, right? So that's one. I was also curious if this was established in 1985, if there are workers from the community also, despite being Muslim, coming into this pig farm and working for them, if that's something you maybe have observed. And finally, how common might this case be in a general context? Do you know of any different practices like that where religion or culture is in conflict with an industry that has overcome through dialogue these conflicts, right? Or is this a single case we're looking at that is unique? So those are my three questions maybe.
We are running out of time, so if you can make your answer short as possible. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for first from Katarina. It is about Islam Abangan. I think that in the first time they established the farming, the pig farming, they didn't consider about the Islam Abangan. So I mentioned in the beginning that until the zoning stage, they didn't consider about Islam Abangan. And then when the conflict arises because of the wastewater and then about the religious sensitiveness, they use the transdisciplinary, they make such of forum group discussion with the stakeholders, especially in this case is called Sambung Banyu, or someone regulating about water for the agriculture. And then about how to integrate sustainability and spatial planning. And about spatial planning, it is very challenging, and we take much times to think about spatial planning and sustainability. But in sustainability communication, we have development communication as the main concept of communication in the case of for development. And so we use one of the part in development communication. One of them is about transdisciplinary, And previously, we also have research on the building of PLTMH, or energy sources in Gunung Kidul. And so we learned from the research, especially previously the research was conducted by Prof. Arum, and then also we learned from the building of the research, and then also we apply the result of the result into our research in this spatial planning. And also it's quite match for sustainability communication and spatial planning. And then about how enterprise embrace the community because of the, maybe they give something or they use some people to persuade the community. But as far we know that they use social compensation, and social compensation in the building of infrastructure and also donation. And from the head of neighborhood unit or RTH, we know that one of unique characteristic in the village is a statement in Japanese, sak manganan sak warakan, or called you will not bite someone feed you, or if you want to lead your people, you have to give them food. So if you give something, you will be okay in that field. I think that's the local wisdom we can take from the community.
Can you jump to the question of ours about whether or not we have the local members who participate in that farming process? Or?
Oh, okay. In the process, we know that the local resident also contribute in the pig farm as workers there, and they don't consider too much about the religious issue because of these practices. They practice Islamic tradition, but they also not too aware about very strict in Islam. And also the product from agriculture of Pojok Village is marketed into other regions. And there is no, I don't know, but there is no regulation about that. And the MUI are also not concerned about that, I think. And I don't know about the regulation about the product.
Yeah,
from, but
I think time is up. Oh, any other?
Maybe about.
I think that's it, right? Is it your question? Yes. Yeah, quick.
Yeah, the link with conflict or resolving the conflict. I think it is resolving the conflict, not dealing with the conflict and live with the conflict, because they are happy and hope that pig farm is still there.